Hello, could you hear me? Hello, is it okay?
Happy Diwali, sir.
Okay. Happy Diwali. Thank you for coming. So happy Diwali to all of you. Have a nice day. Okay, now this is my last class, so I thought to cover something over a period of 1.5 hours roughly. Now you must have seen the quiz model answer. Go through the model answer, and then you would realize that what mistakes you have made, etc., etc. And by today afternoon, you will be getting your answer books. Okay, you just go through the answer book and see that how the performance was. It seems the performance is not that good or not good. Okay, because of I don't know what happens. So you attempted, but the answer was in the wrong directions mostly. So barring few, most of you could not manage to have the good thing. So what we will do, I have decided now to convert it to 5 marks instead of 10, so that you can get better chance in improving during the NSEM exam. Okay. So NSEM exam, get ready, prepared through my PPT videos, and if you have any specific queries, write back to my chemistry email, not to the GPO. If you wish, that lahiri@chem.iitb.ac.in, and I will try to answer your queries as quickly as possible. Okay. Now, after knowing the basic principles around the EPR and the other related items, particularly the hyperfine, super hyperfine interactions, etc., and how it should be guided, how it should observe, and also we have talked about one issue that though EPR is a very sensitive experiment, but relaxation is a severe problem. That is why in many occasions we do not get the expected resolution of the resonances. So as a result, when you have a multi-line EPR spectra, because of hyperfine, super hyperfine, all sort of interactions together, so we get a lot of overlapping signals. But that is nothing new for all of you, as because you must have noticed that for NMR, if you go for the metal complexes, organic NMR, it looks like the picture. So clear, so nice, mostly because of the smaller number of your protons, and also symmetry is there in most of the cases. The half molecule gets converted to 1/4 or whatever it is. So, but inorganic metal complexes, NMR also very cumbersome. So you will see a lot of overlapping, and because of the close by chemical shift, but we know how to handle it. Similarly, EPR also, when your number of line enhances because of hyperfine or super hyperfine interaction, then we get the lines not what we expected. Sometimes what happened, lines are buried within the resolved lines, but the buried means how to figure it out. So one option could be that one should do the simulation, and if calculated spectrum and the experimentally observed spectrum for that particular compound or compounds, if they synchronize well, then you can have a lot of confidence about the molecular form and the electronic forms of that molecules. Okay, so this is how we have to move on. We can expect, but our expectation has also some limited reflection as far as the experiments are concerned. So last day, we started knowing the fact of the EPR background. We thought to talk about something about the electronic structural aspects. And I already told you the molecular structure of any compound, inorganic, organic, whatever it is, that gives us the picture of the molecule, how the molecule would look like in terms of bond length, bond angles, and the donor atoms, metals or non-metals, whatever it is, the true picture of the, it's some kind of photographic aspect, I should tell. And then from that, crystal structure, we can figure it out the metric parameters, the bond distance, bond angles, planarity, non-planarity, covalent interaction, non-covalent interactions, metal-metal interactions. So many events you could gather out of your crystal structure, and all are related to the molecular forms, either at the extended form or at the discrete form. Both could be managed to understand out of your crystal structure, but every important directed towards your molecular structure. But another thing is also important as far as any molecule is concerned, particularly the metal complexes, where electronic structure comes. Now what happened, 95% or more molecules, I'm talking about metal complexes, there only one variable is there. As far as the oxidation state is concerned, that is the metal oxidation can vary for the transition metals. Main group, you have only two oxidation states, right? 1, 3, 2, 4, something like that. But transition metals, you can vary from minus, say, 2, 3, 4 to even plus 10. Okay. So there's a lot of variations. But if it is one dimensional, then one can still understand it. Why one dimension I'm talking about? That is, in most cases, the ligand system around the metals, they do not participate in the redox processes because their orbital levels are much higher and all sort of things are there. So they cannot participate. So that type of ligands, we call it redox inactive ligand. So in that situation, you have any redox activity of that molecule certainly would be around the metal center. But there are few ligand systems, let us consider 5% or even less. Those ligands are reactive. Okay, reactive in the sense they can also take part in electron transfer processes because of their disposition of the frontier orbitals in the metal complex, and as a result, they always provide a competitive scenario, metal or ligand based electron transfer in such molecular frameworks, right? And in our biological system, there are so many metalloproteins where if you look at the metalloprotein site, particularly the metal cofactor site, you will be seeing that lot of anomaly is there in terms of the electronic structure of that protein, metalloprotein, that cofactor site. It could be this side, it could be that side. You could argue what is the need to understand that. If you do not understand properly, then the problem is you cannot design your model compounds accordingly, first point. And second point is, then you cannot design the necessary drugs to address the issues which could arise due to the deficiencies of that particular centers. So many issues are there. So from the fundamental point of view, we need to understand what is happening over there. So I gave a couple of examples. For example, I already talked about these three centers, the three metal complexes, and crystal structure suggests that here it is in the radical form. This is electrically neutral. So these are coupled, A is equal to 0, A is equal to 0. And the same molecule, here it is not coupled because orbital dispositions did not allow it to couple. Okay. So what I'm trying to mean, the slight modification of the donor centers around the metal ion, it leads you to have a different spin interactions. That is interesting. Okay. So sometimes slight modification we consider, no, nothing will happen. No, it is not so. You could see a drastic difference in terms of the spin configuration over here, and also the electron transfer processes. What I already talked about, that these two compounds or three compounds can undergo one-step oxidation and one-step reduction. Even if you do not understand the electrochemistry, forget it, but we understand oxidation and reduction, right? Electron release and electron uptake. Now, both could happen either at the metal site or at the ligand site, because these ligand can participate in oxidation reduction processes. And the metal certainly, if I consider this particular metal, this is Ru. Ru means low spin, heavier metal. So it will have 2, 3, and 4 common oxidation state. Okay, so we can have this redox scheme like this. But these two molecules, EPR would help us to understand whether the electron transfer takes place at the metal site or the ligand site. Now, if you look at this scheme carefully, we see that EPR, either oxidation or reduction. At the native state, there is no EPR. Oxidation and reduction gives you metal-based anisotropic EPR. The origin of this EPR is certainly metal. It does mean the electron transfer here takes place at the ligand side. On oxidation, it goes to the closed cell. On reduction, again, it goes to the closed cell, leaving the metal spin intact. Metal spins mean Ru3 means T2G5, 1 ampere electron, and that is being reflected over here. But this compound, what do we see it? That radical-based EPR, unlike this compound, unlike EPR of this compound, and as a result, what is happening? That is only possible if you consider metal-based electron transfer. That means Ru3 to Ru4, which is T2G4 is equal to 0, and here it is T2G6 is equal to 0. So unpaired electron is on the ligand side, and that is being reflected in the free radical signal with a lot of hyperfine, super hyperfine coupling because of these protons, etc., etc. So EPR is the only technique which could help you to understand the site of electron transfer, which will help you to understand the spin configuration for such a class of molecules where metal and ligands both could take part in the electron transfer processes because of their redox active, or in other words, redox non-inocentricity. So another example we have given also, I'm just reiterating before moving into the new topic, that these two cases, what do we see? Here we could see in both the cases your three spin situation, but here we see 1-3 coupled. 1, 2, 3, 1, 3 coupling. That means these two gets coupled. Unpaired electron remains on the metal side, which is being reflected by the copper-based, copper-based signal. Now, in this case, where it is slightly octahedron configuration, the similar molecule, but we could get the radical signal. That means, these two coupled, leaving the unpaired spin on the ligand side. Okay. Question is, why this diagonally opposite coupling pattern? Because if you have to understand, this is a tetragonally compressed system. So the unpaired spin of the copper in x square minus y square. That's why they cannot couple with the pz orbital ligand bearing electron based orbitals. So it cannot couple. So it prefers to couple these two. On the other hand, this is elongated setup, and this is your compressed setup. As a result, your DZ's unpaired electron is on the DZ square. So DZ square and PZ, they're symmetrically allowed to interact, and as a result, this set of electrons get coupled, and an unpaired electron remains on the one of the ligand center, which is being reflected to the hyperfine coupling, etc. I already said that this value is wrong. This is 2.1 metal based. Now, similarly, we have given another examples to understand the flow of the reaction, and there how the radical could be. There are 2 points out of this slide I talked about. One is nobody should take the electronic configuration of a metal complex granted in the beginning by looking at the other peripheral parameters. For example, I said that this molecule could be defined by this way, Ru3L-, but actually if you look at the EPR, which tells us this is not perfectly this configuration, the resonating configuration is also available. That means there is no electron transfer, only intermolecular electron shuffling between ligand to metal. So this electron goes from here to here, it reduces, it oxidizes, you get the radical. So total number of electron remains fixed. So, and because of this radical composition over here on top of the metal, this is 80% or more and this is less, but 20% resonating configuration cannot be neglected. So that is how it is considered as a resonating form, and the if you look at the mode G and delta G, that is also reflecting over here. And that again allows to react to the triplet oxygen and then all sort of thing. And then you get superoxide intermediate. And superoxide intermediate could also be easily characterized by the radical based EPR if you look at the G and delta G. But slight anisotropy is happening. This is the expanded scale along the x-axis. So it looks like this one, but it is not so. It is basically radical signal which has been expanded for your understanding that this unpaired electron is being diffused partly onto the metal. And as a result, you can think about another type of resonating form over here, and that is how the anisotropic feature appears. Okay. And then another example I have given is a very nice example that NO like quinone can also exist in the different oxidation state. Now, this is one molecule which could be characterized crystallographically absolutely without any doubt. And then if you record the EPR, you should expect one line EPR for the NO radical like this. But experimental EPR, you could see the anisotropy. And then anisotropy could be interpreted in terms of similarly what I talked about in earlier case, that this is the majority component, and if you allow it to undergo intermolecular electron transfer, then this electron will move unpaired electron from here to here. As a result, this will be reduced to Ru1 and this will be the NO plus. So you have now unpaired electron over here, T2G6 Eg1, and that is actually giving some amount of anisotropy over here. Now question is this resonating form correct? My answer is no. Because these resonating forms show that they are mostly 50-50% in ratio. But actually what is happening is the 80-20 ratio. Okay. And that could be estimated by the fact of if you calculate the spin density of this molecule, you will be seeing the 20% spin on the metal side and 80% spin on the ligand side. That means this is the dominating electronic form and this is the minority contribution. And as a result, if you look at the G values, they are mostly ligand centered. That means NO centered, radical G values. But the slight anisotropy which is being reflected because of the 20% contribution of this electronic form. So these are very dicey, yeah. But you could reach to a point via EPR and via spin density calculation where you feel I should say quite comfortable, and people will accept your argument that this is how it is. So it is nothing straightforward that if you look at the EPR and you can tell, you can make some guessing, but you have to give additional support through the calculations. So in combination with calculation, EPR could be one of the very important aspects in realizing the fact of electronic structural complications in such class of molecules where both metal and ligand can participate in electron transfer processes. Okay. And then another example I have given, which is a very interesting example in the sense, in spite of the fact of the glorious background of EPR, okay, so it has its own drawbacks. Okay. So drawback in the sense that this very famous compound, that Browning compound, what we do it in the laboratory classes. Now, this Browning compound electronic formula, if anybody looks at this molecule, they will say it's the simplest molecules available in the earth. True, simplest molecule looking wise. Okay, if I try to judge any human being looking wise, most of the times everybody would be under difficult situations. Okay, someone may look very simple, but actually it is not so. And reverse also, someone may look very tough, rough and tough, but they are probably wonderful human being. So similarly, that means you need to understand that person for some time, then only you will get the feeling through the behavioral, through the other events around that person, then only you could come to the conclusion with a lot of confidence that yes, this man is good or this person is not that good. Similarly, this molecule, looking wise, is so simple. Nobody thought that it would lead us to have such a complicated scenario. Because it took almost 100 years even to draw a line. What is the electronic configuration of this molecule? Even today, there was a paper which is also highlighting the same point, very difficult. Okay, they are again, they have gone back to the fact of the resonating consideration. I already talked about it. Let me reiterate for a minute that this molecule, if you look at that, water is just supporting ligand. It cannot participate in any electron transfer processes, so it is of no consequence. But it is needed to fulfill the coordination sphere geometry around the metal center. So the redox active site is iron and the NO dot. Now NO dot already you have talked about, and iron already we know it could have been iron 1, iron 2, iron 3. All are possible depending on the overall ligand environment around the metal centers. All are possible. So we can easily think about iron 4 one should not go, because then we have to bring this into the picture. And iron 4 is a very unlikely situation that is only possible if you have very potent, negatively charged donor centers like oxo, like nitrine, like imido, 2 minus, 3 minus, that kind of ligand setup. Otherwise, iron 4 one should not think about it. So this is a chemically viable options. Now what I said, in all the occasions, if you consider the high spin configuration of iron, and this is the neutral radical, one unpaired electron, there is no unpaired electron. There are 2 unpaired electrons over here, NO2 minus, so they are not paired up. Then you will see that in all forms you have 3 unpaired electrons. The S equal to 3 by 2 by coupling process. S equal to 3 by 2, again by coupling process, S equal to 3 by 2. So if you measure the magnetic moment, you will have the root over 3 into 3 plus 1, then it will come into your around 3.8, 3.9 Bohr magneton overall magnetic moment. So you cannot distinguish. And if you measure the EPR, first of all, this is 3 by 2s. EPR would be very complicated. And second point is, all 3 forms is they expect to provide us the same EPR profile, because 3 by 2 in each case, so you cannot distinguish. So EPR fails and magnetic moments fails. One could argue that this is iron, so Mossberg and the your chemical isotopic shift, all sort of things could be considered. They tried. It could not lead to the point where they wanted to go. But because of the fact this molecule shuttles between this and this, and their rate of shuttling is so fast, or faster than the spectroscopic technique what was considered to analyze it. And theoretically also, IR, vibrational, everything they tried. Okay, sometimes they get result in favor, slightly in favor of this, sometimes slightly in favor of this, and sometimes slightly in favor of this. So the best option under that present circumstances, where none of the experiments could point towards a particular electronic form in a very convincing manner, so the alternate option is to consider their hybrid form. Hybrid form means they are resonating between the all possible your electronic forms, and the energy barrier is too low. And as a result, what happens even at room temperature or slightly lower temperature, okay, and they have also observed slightly higher temperature before that it compound decomposed, that barrier is not too high. Barrier could be managed through the KT. Okay, KT means room temperature things are slightly above or slightly lower. So it's a shuttling mechanism. So once you understand this electronic form, another particular issue in both organic chemistry and inorganic chemistry, which is considered to be very important as well, to understand our biological processes. Okay. And besides biological, of course, our fundamental chemistry, our industrial approach is also there to figure it out. The electronic, everything is around the electronic structure. We are talking about EPR. So our goal is to take you back to the point where EPR would be helpful or useful in figuring out the problems. Right. So EPR is the electronic issue. So electronic structure. So one set of compounds we have talked about where we tried to understand how EPR would be helpful in figuring out the location of the electron in such a metal complex where it could be either on the metal or on the ligand or somewhere in between. So that we talked about it. Now we are talking about another issue where it's a polynuclear compound. Now if you have a polynuclear framework, let us consider in the beginning metal complexes, multi-metallic systems. Metals could be connected through the bridging ligand normal way, okay, or sometimes they are also connected to the metal-metal bonds. So instead of making the situation more complicated at your level, I am restricting myself to consider that metals are connected to the bridging ligand. So let us assume that molybdenum, chlorine, molybdenum. That means chloro-bridged molybdenum compound. Or you can take the pyrazine, two para-nitrogen centers in the benzene ring. So one ring is attached to the one metal, other ring is attached to the one metal. So symmetrically bridged, the two metals, across the pyrazine side, right? So that kind of molecule, if you take, we have two options. The polynuclear molecule, when you take, it could be the simplest one. Simplest one is a dinuclear compound. It could be the polymeric. Polymeric means n number of metals are there. Or it could be, say, trimeric, tetrameric, pentameric. Those are called discrete molecules. Either it could be discrete, where your minimum unit would be n equal to 2. That means 2 metals are there. And it could go 3, 4, 5, something like 6 also people have said. Or even it could go up to even 20, 30, depending on, without going into the polymer mode. And if it goes into the polymer mode, that means infinity number of molecules. Now, if it is so, then we have two options again. One option is all the metal ions are in the same oxidation state, N plus. That means 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, whatever it is. But same oxidation state. Other option is the metal ions in that polynuclear unit, they are not in the same oxidation state. There could be N and N plus 1 or N minus 1, reverse way. That means they are different. Now, again, to make the things further less complicated, I am assuming the difference in your number of electrons between the two metal center 1. That means if I consider 1, that means oxidation state is N plus or N plus 1 plus or N plus N minus 1 plus. Okay, that is the difference. So again, we are cutting down the things from polymer to the simplest one, dinuclear setup. Now let us assume the two dinuclear molecules you have in hand. In one case, and this is symmetry. That means all the ligands around each metal centers are same and the bridge is symmetry. That means I can consider all the 6 ligands, if it is octahedral. Around the ligand means donor site are same and they are identical between the two metal units. And if there is a symmetry, you can draw one mirror plane through the bridge. So the one half could represent the other half. Or you can put a inversion center and you can say the inversion symmetry is there or mirror symmetry is there. Or it might happen, apparently looking symmetric ligand setup, but some kind of molecular twisting, distortion in the solid state, in solution state possible. And in that case, you will be losing the symmetry thing. But the main point is that both the metal ions having the similar environment around them. So that is called the symmetric setup. That is the simplified one I am talking about only. And in that case, you have one metal N plus, other metal N plus. So there won't be any electron transfer between them because electronically both are same and molecular form wise same and electronically they are same. That means both the metals M and M, not M, M dash, N plus, N plus. So it is just like, you know, the water will never flow if there is no slope over there, right? And in other case, you are considering N plus 1. That means one is in the reduced form, other is in the oxidized form. So reduced form is electronically richer compared to the oxidized form, we know. Then electron could transfer from the reduced metal, electronically rich metal, to the electronically poorer metal, that means the oxidized metal, via the mediation of the bridge. Okay, it looks simple, but a lot of complications are there. Because any electron transfer cannot occur to the space, right? It requires orbital. As soon as orbital overlapping comes into the picture in the form of a super exchange, you must have heard the term in magnetism, super exchange. That means metal orbital, ligand orbital, and metal orbital, they need to overlap. And that overlap is possible provided they are symmetrically allowed. As I gave you the example of copper case, where in one case 1,3 coupling, other case is 1,2 coupling. And that because the ligand electron remains on the same. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very nice. I'm sorry. Okay. Now we said that if it is N plus and N plus 1 plus, okay, then electron can transfer from oxidized to the reduced state. Sorry, reduced state to the oxidized state. So as a result, what happens, there will be a point that based on the electron transfer rate, which is very fast, you know that, 10 to the minus 15 seconds. So it's more than your femtosecond scale. Nah? So more than 10 to the 15 seconds. As a result, what happens, so fast electron transfer. So depending on the spectroscopic technique, what you will be using to figure it out the electron transfer rate, okay, you may get, you know, that at a particular instance, that instead of defining N plus and N plus 1 plus or 2 plus 3 plus, you prefer to define it as a 2.5. That means the electron, one unpaired electron, which is being delocalized around the domain of metal, bridged metal, fully delocalized. So spectroscopic technique cannot distinguish whether it is the metal in 2 or metal in 3. It will give you the reflection of metal. Both the metals are delocalized. The one unpaired electron delocalized between both the metal atoms. So at a particular instance, that does not necessarily mean that it is always delocalized. It depends on what particular technique you have used to follow it. Okay, and if it happens that your electron transfer rate is slower over there, because electron transfer rate 10 to the minus 15, I am talking for the free electron. But in your compound, when the unpaired electron is there, it is not free. It is being restricted into the crystal field. Okay. So there are a lot of perturbations are there in that sense. So as a result, what happens, electron transfer rate would be much lower. Now, if it is even lower below the instrument detection limit, then you can see it that at one instance it is +2 and other instance it is +3. That means instead of defining 2.5 on each metal, it would be advisable to define the metal as metal 2, metal 3. And that could also be analyzed by isotopic pattern, by your EPR technique. So EPR technique would be very useful in dealing with this problem. Now I am again telling you that EPR is one of the techniques. So one technique would give you some impression, which may be in the direction of what you like or which you don't like. It doesn't matter, or whatever we like it. But it will give you some directions. then you need to take the help of other technique. And that's why for the characterization of a one particular compound, you need to take the help of many techniques together. Okay, and nowadays, because of the advent of your theoretical event, you can bring the theory into it to corroborate the fact what you have generated out of your experimental tool. Now, you see, I said that this is one of the important aspects in our biological way and also our mineral world also. Now, biology, you know already that polynuclear structure is common in case of our photosystem. There are 4 manganese centers are there. Okay, still the debate is there. That is the manganese 2, manganese 3, manganese 4, and what is the, all 3 are there, but what is the combination? People have made a lot of progresses, but nothing is 100% convinced. Maybe 95% level it is accurate, but still 5% dicey character is there. So that is how, and that is why the opportunity of the fundamental research to make the things brighter for tomorrow. Okay, so all fundamental research is not so less important. Remember that, because as soon as application comes, which is quite good because you get the benefit today. But if there are fundamentals missing, if fundamentals are missing, then you cannot follow anything. You can manage to follow something today, but you cannot develop that product. The product development, your fundamental needs to be very clear, so then you can understand that this is how one should move on to improve the items, right? And that is how the things roll on. So similarly, our cytochrome C oxidase, you will be seeing that copper centers are there in 2 different oxidation states. Okay, copper 2, copper 1. Similarly, your ferredoxin, ferridoxin, all if you see the iron protein, iron sulfur proteins, there you will be seeing the debate is continuing that what is the iron oxidation state, but certainly not in the same oxidation state. Here, for example, you can have manganese 2 to 4 out of 4 centers with the different combinations. Here, copper 2, copper 1, rather simple. And here you have iron 2, iron 3, but the problem over here is high spin, low spin, all sort of issues will be there. Now, if you look at the naturally occurring stuffs, our spinels, you know, these are all magnetic materials, very important for variety of applications. The question is, what is the oxidation state combinations? Is it delocalized? It is localized like this. If it is delocalized, then A 2.5, B 2.5. Okay. So all sort of relevant questions are open. So there are many techniques by which one could make a move. But the simplest way to move on in the beginning by EPR. I will let you know how. Now, similarly, this Prussian blue. The Prussian blue, it is called the Berlin blue at one point of time. It discovered more than 300 years ago in Berlin. And this was a very dark blue color because of this, just transfer transitions occur over there. And earlier days, dyes were not that developed. So people use this color this blue color for colorations of many things. Very important item at one point of time. Well, fundamentals have developed, but not complete. So these are all naturally occurring your mixed balance setup, as I told you. Okay, but first design mixed valent compound, as you know, the textbook case is the Khrushchev ion, where 2 ruthenium centers in +2, +3, and they are bridged by the pyrazine centers. And crystallographically, one could characterize this compound as 2.1. The question remains over there that whether it is better to describe electronically 2,3, or it should be better to describe electronically as 2.5, 2.5. And if you look at this molecule a little bit carefully, you will see everything is identical around the metal centers. Because your donor centers are all identical, geometry is exactly identical, and this is the ideal molecule because you have taken the monodentate ligand. So chelate-related distortions won't be accessible over there. So at the end, this is one center and this is another center having all parameters identical, except whether it is 2 and 3 or 2.5 or 2.5, which way it would be better. Similarly, I'm talking about the iron ferrocene compounds. Question is 2, 3 or 2.5, 2.5. Similarly over here, and if you look at the organic molecule, many organic molecules, those are electronically very important organic molecules, have taken one radical. You see that here the two compartments are there. Okay. Now one compartment is in the cationic state, other compartment is the radical state. Okay, or both could be cationic based on the electron transfer processing. Now this is the unit that is mixed valent unit. So one unit is cationic, other unit is radical center is there. So one could expect the electron transfer from this side to that side. And these two sides, if you look at, these two components are basically isovalent situation. So from isovalent, one could generate the mixed valent. Here also, if you start from 2, 2, and then through one electron transfer, you can generate the mixed valent. Similarly, over here. Okay, now mixed valent case, I'm not taking you to a lot of physics, a lot of thermodynamics, everything is involved over there. So I'm not telling you to understand all the nitty-gritty, all the details. What I am telling you, very minimum way by which you can understand the impact of EPR in realizing the electron transfer issue or pertinent issue of electron transfer in the mixed valent molecular setup. Okay, so to understand that, the first thing we have to understand, as I told you right now, how the mixed valent compound could be generated. You may not be lucky enough because these are all naturally occurring items. Where the mixed valent compounds are thermodynamically stable, kinetically also favored, so that's why they remain in the nature. Okay, but what happens if you want to understand the all the electron transfer aspects over here? You cannot take proteins, no, because there are a lot of proteins, molecules are around by in the photosystem too and all this. So the normal way to understand it by using the model compound. So your model compound should be very close to the actual compound. Then only your data could be extrapolated over there to have a better understanding. There is a huge difference as far as the chemistry is concerned and the molecular form is concerned between the model what you have designed to understand the protein behavior. I'm talking of metalloproteins behavior. Then whatever knowledge you have developed through model system, which is of no significance. So model should be very, I'm not saying 1:1 correspondence, but it should be very close by. Okay. So in that sense, if we consider that this is the isovalent situation, and we allow it to undergo 2 successive electron transfer, and we have considered over here that this bridging ligand is redox inactive. That means electron transfer process it will not participate. Like in this case, this is redox inactive center. In this case, all are redox inactive center. Only metal is the redox active. Just to make sure the electron transfer takes place at the metal site only, so that you can have a much simpler situation. In that case, what will happen? This will be your reduced form. This will be your oxidized form. That means each metal ion is getting oxidized by 1 unit, and then your it passes to the intermediate situation where one metal is in the oxidized, other metal in the reduced form, and that is called the mixed valent setup. Right? Now, question as I already talked about, whether we define is 2 and 3 or 2.5, 2.5. Now, to understand this, first of all, we have to find out the that equilibrium constant of this comproportionation reaction. It's called the comproportionation reaction. It's just electron shuttling from here to there. So comproportionation constant we have to find out from the delta GC, which is minus RT ln Kc. And if you consider the Nernst equation, that is equivalent to minus Na here because electron transfer is there. So Nernst equation is fitting very well. And delta E means the difference between E2 and E1. Okay. So E2 and E1 we can get out of your electrochemistry, and everything is constant. So Kc, that means the comproportionation constant value out of this equilibrium, what I said, that equilibrium reaction, that means intermediate divided by reduced into oxidized form. The Kc would be 10 to the power delta E by 0.059 if the electron transfer is 1 electron. Kc means actually it says the stability of the intermediate in this equilibrated reaction. Okay, and that is the strain factor is common. Delta E means separate. You have to only know the separation in potential between the two successive redox steps, and if it is known, and if the electron transfer is 1, then from Nernst equation you get 0.059 and you can calculate the Kc. Now, what people have done by using thousands of molecules and different physical parameters, etc., so there is a general conclusion. If the Kc is very high, that means intermediate is stable in the sense that electron transfer taking place at your much faster rate, and that's a delocalized situation. So it says that if it is 10 to the power 6 onwards, one could safely consider as a delocalized setup. And if Kc is below 10 to the power 6, I'm talking about substantially below, say 10 to the power 5, 4, 3, 2, etc. And the lower side should be considered as a perfectly delocalized setup. Sorry, localized setup. That means 2, 3 setup. And in between 10 to the power 6 and 10 to the power 5, that is considered the borderline case. Now, borderline case, which is a highly debatable situation, to define it as a class 2 or localized or delocalized, what we call class 3, forget about class, delocalized setup. Okay, so there are other spectroscopic mix one should try to, or EPR would be very helpful. Now you see the electron transfer takes place between this metal to this metal at the mixed valence state, not at the isovalence state, via the mediation of the bridge. Now, naturally, if you increase the length of the bridge without changing much about the nature of the bridge, you see the two nitrogen donors, only you have used one bond between these two, so you have increased the length, and then you have used this C-double-bond-C in between, again increase the length, and you look at how the Kc is decreasing. That means electron transfer rate would be slower if you increase the length. So this concept you can take it back to the polymer chain. Once we are dealing with the polymer is very useful materials, nah? And where if you use the mixed valence polymer, and then if you use as as one of the electron transfer mode, then you have to be very careful that what kind of polymer you are using. If the length is too big, then electron transfer rate would be sluggish like anything. Okay, so that impression you can get it, and it is very logical. Distance increases, so rate of electron transfer would be decreased. The inverse relation. Okay. Now I said that we'll just take 2 or 3 examples to tell you, without going deep inside of this topic, that this is a very complicated topic. As a result, there are, I think, 2-3 Nobel Prizes are given. You know that all this. So I'm not going into that. What I'm trying to only talk about, that if a system having one unpaired electron in a polynuclear setup, in our case it is dinuclear setup, how to sort it out, the oxidized and reduced form of the metal ions across the bridge could be differentiated in the form of a localized situation or a delocalized situation. Okay, to understand this thing, let me take first one simple example, very simple example. Look at this example here. It is very close to the that Khrushchev ion. The 2 molybdenum centers are being separated by one pyrazine group, and the rest are again common around the metal sites. So as a result, what you are getting, very symmetrical situation across the bridge, right? And this is a mixed valence situation. One is Moly 0, other is Moly 1. So Moly 0 means electronic configuration is d6, low spin naturally. And Moly 1 is d5. That means you have one unpaired electron. So one could define this molecule as 0 and 1. Matter ends. Is it a correct way to do it? That is the question. How to figure it out? That truly it is 0 or 1, or it is 0 0.5, 0 0.5. You see how useful the EPR is. And this EPR already we have talked about earlier in a mononuclear setup. I already talked about that moly. If you see it, moly, you have 74% nuclei, which is I equal to 0. Only your 25% nuclei having I equal to 5/2. If I consider, for the sake of our argument or discussion, if I prefer to consider the unpaired electron is here, okay, and this another moly is around your almost 6 to 6.5 angstrom away, okay, and then your EPR spectrum would be your this one, that will be the bigger one, and then it is 5/2. This isotope is there, 5/2 isotope, 25%, and that means 6 lines. And we know already the ratio, 6 lines. That will be essentially your 1/18th of your intensity ratio with respect to the primary line, right? And as a result, you will be getting small line on both the sides of the principal lines. Am I clear to all of you? Okay, so this is 1/3 basically, 25 and 75, and then 1/6. So 1/18th, right? Okay. Now, if it is localized on one particular metal center, then you should expect 3 lines here, 3 lines here. Now, if you very, very carefully look at this EPR spectrum, you have to be very, very critical. And then if you do some kind of scale checking, you will be seeing that 1 line, 2 line here, 3 line here. Just a second. 3 line here. Let me show you 1 second. 3 line here. 1 line here. 1 line here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lines are there. So apparently, if you look at this EPR, you will feel, that only one moly nucleus is interacting with the unpaired spin. So that means the 2 molys are identical. Okay. I'm sorry. If one moly interacts, that means that other moly is not coming into the picture, so it will be localized scenario. Now, if you got 11 lines, that means 2 into 5/2 into 2 into 5/2 plus 1, that is 11. That means this unpaired electron is essentially shuttling between this moly and this moly via the mediation of these orbitals. And that is possible if they are energetically compatible. That means moly, bridge and moly, if 3 are energetically compatible and symmetrically compatible. Under the circumstances, even if your distance increases too much, then this delocalization is not possible. If the distance is reasonable, energetically orbitals are compatible, symmetry-wise compatible, then one could anticipate. So what I'm trying to mean, that if it is being localized as it is written over here, then this electron would only interact with the nucleus spin of this moly. And in that case, we will have the 6 lines only, 3 lines here, 3 lines here, and the central line. Okay. But experimentally, we are getting 6 lines, 11 lines. So what would be the origin of the 11 lines? That means this unpaired electron is essentially facing both the moly nuclei. And that is only possible if this electron shuttles like this, unpaired electron I'm talking about. And that is possible. If that is possible, then the electronic forms would be at the mixed valence state, moly 0.5, moly 0.5, instead of moly 0, moly 1. So this would be the definition. Now I'm telling you one thing, that EPR is rather slow technique compared to IR. EPR is 10⁻⁸ technique. Now you just verify this thing again by using the vibrational technique. The vibrational technique is 10 to the power minus 12 picoseconds, much faster technique. Okay, but the problem is, EPR you can take for any unpaired electron containing compound. But vibrational technique would only be useful if you have a particular group around the metal center which could be monitored in an isolated zone, right? Like metal carbonyl, metal nitrosyls, those, metal cyanide, they appears above 1600 centimeter inverse. Na? Because otherwise what happens, aromatic rings attached to the metal, which is of no use as far as the IR is concerned, because they come below 1600. That is called the fingerprint region, crowded region. You cannot isolate and you cannot experimentally check it properly. But this molecule is unique in the sense, it has, you see that it has your meridionally disposed 3 carbonyl molecules around each moly centers. If it is meridionally oriented, then you should expect the 3 carbonyl vibration, which is known already, right, from IR point of view. Now, if you start with 0, 0, that the 2 moly is isovalent, absolutely isovalent, you take 0, 0, and then if you take 0, 0, then what will happen? You cannot differentiate between these 2 molys, right? Because they are same in all cells. That electronically they are also same, 0, 0. And if you take 1, 1, situation is same. Electronically they are same. So you should expect only 3 lines. For example, this is one, the black one. You see the 3 absorption in the 0, 0, 3 absorption in the IR. Now, if you oxidized 1 moly from 0, 0 to 0, 1, then electronic content over here is different than the electronic content over here. And you already know the IR vibration is a function of the electronic content of that metal ion. So you should expect at least overlapping, if not isolated or segregated, 3 CO peaks over for this moly, if it is 0, 1 localized situation, and 3 peaks for this one. So 6 peaks you should get it. But what they have got it for 0, 1, again 3 peaks, the starred one, again 3 peaks, profile more or less, only shifted. And shifting is expected because electrons, number of electrons at the metal side has got changed. So that tells you that yes, at the vibrational level also, it is delocalized. So EPR level delocalized, we could easily figure it out by considering the isotropic interaction, that means the hyperfine coupling, and that could be easily corroborated by a much faster spectroscopic technique by IR. Okay, and also if you look at the Kc, what you calculate from your electrochemistry, that is also giving 10 to the power 6. Now, electrochemistry is much slower. So if we move the rate of, the experimental rate, this is the slowest one. That tells you delocalized scenario. That's why I gave you this example, Kc. So that tells you delocalized. EPR 10 to the power minus 8. This is in terms of minute actually. Yeah. So in terms of minus 8, it is telling you delocalized, and then IR, if you go to 10 to the power minus 12, again it is delocalized. That means all 3 techniques if you put together, and there are many other techniques people also take, and also the calculations, and do the spin density calculation, you will see spin is over here, almost equally, and some spin, negative spin is over here. That means it's essentially perfect example of super exchange phenomenon, and all collectively would help you to understand the electron transfer. Then you can back calculate the electron transfer. If it is a delocalized, naturally electron transfer rate will be much faster compared to the localized scenario. So that's the rest process. Initially, EPR would be very useful in figuring out whether it's a localized situation or it's a delocalized situation at the mixed valence state. So that question naturally does not arise when you deal with the isovalent lower congener or higher congener. Clear? I hope you could follow it. Now, let us take another example. It is rather close, but it gives you the different information. For example, you take this manganese compound. Okay. One is manganese 2, other is the manganese 1. Okay. Now, manganese 1 is your D6 setup, already we know, and manganese 2 is a D5 setup, right? Same thing. That means one unpaired electron, it may stop again, but I will restart. Yeah? So the manganese 2, this is the one unpaired electron is there. This is low spin compound, all the strong ligand, one unpaired electron. Okay. Now here, if you look at the Kc at the mixed valence state, is again in the delocalized domain. But is Kc is SWOT technique, or should we take it very seriously or not? That's the big question. Then we have gone for the EPR. If you look at the EPR, if, as I said in case of moly, here also I equal to 5/2, like moly. But here it is 100%. But there it was only 25%. So that's why the hyperfine peaks are small compared to the main electronic. And since it is 100%, that is fully intense hyperfine lines you would be seeing it. Now at room temperature, if you measure the EPR, because of the high isotopic abundance, you will be seeing the 11 line spectrum over here. But if you go to the lower temperature, you will be getting perfectly 6 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. That tells us very clearly the extent of delocalization, extent of spin coupling process within the molecular setup, which is much faster naturally at room temperature, higher temperature, much faster. So it is behaving like a delocalized setup at higher temperature, but when you are reducing the temperature from 290 some K to 120 K, what is happening? The electron transfer rate slowing down a lot for this particular case, and as a result, it is now showing 2:1. So 2:1 definition would be preferred at lower temperature, but 1.5, 1.5, that would be preferred at higher temperature. So what a wonderful technique. Okay, and by this technique, you can very clearly point out what is happening over there. Now, this is the last example for today's discussion and for this course. This is again very interesting example because it tells us many things. Now, earlier 2 cases, what we have done, interestingly, we have deliberately taken the bridging ligand which does not take part in any electron transfer process. Am I right? So that does mean our intention was to understand how EPR could be helpful in figuring out that delocalized or localized scenario at the mixed valence state. Now here we have designed a molecule, and that molecule is very interesting in the sense the bridge what has been taken over here, which is redox active. And if you look at the bridge carefully, this is the paraquinone. Paraquinone is similar to your orthoquinone. So you can have fully reduced dianionic, fully oxidized neutral, and the intermediate radical form, right? And when the compound was isolated, both the metals in the +3 state, and this is acetyl acetonate, this is 100% EPR inactive. Okay, so EPR active site is this one, 1 unpaired electron is here, low spin, 1 unpaired electron is here. Okay, and you will have minus, but at the native state means the state what you have isolated, the configuration is 3, 2-, and these 3 are not coupled, so S equal to 1 ground state, a triplet ground state. And it has its own EPR. That EPR will have your G equal to half signal over here. I'm not shown because the space is not there. And also you will have G equal to 2 anisotropic signal as it is expected for a triplet situation like this. Clear? Now you check the electrochemistry. You need not to understand electrochemistry at all. You are allowing it to undergo oxidation, two-step reduction. Second oxidation is irreversible, first oxidation is reversible. So one could follow the electronic form at the first oxidation state and the reduced state. Now if you look at this is the native form. Now native form, your bridge is having minus minus. That means bridge is here. Now you are allowing it to undergo one electron reduction and in a successive manner. So there are total 2 electron reductions. So if you move from 1 electron, then what will happen? Bridge cannot reduce any further, accept any further electron. It is in the fully reduced form, what we call the super reduced form. So it cannot accept. So what will happen? Metal will accept. In a successive manner, it will give you the 3, 2 and followed by 2, 2. 2, 2 I have not written here. 2, 2 is the isovalent setup, not important from EPR point of view. And if you look at this is S equal to half and this is S equal to 1. Okay. So here and here the difference would be, here the EPR looks like this. Okay. And if you check up to 1600 or 1500, there is no half field signal. So the difference between this and this, here you will have half field signal G equal to 4 and G equal to 2 region with the anisotropic EPR profile because of the metal based unpaired spin. And here you will have only metal based unpaired spin, S equal to half, that similar kind of anisotropic profile with slight changes in the G1, G2, G3 or delta G mod G, but there won't be any G equal to 4 response. But the interesting point is, as I told you, and as far as this part is concerned, if you look at that, this Kc is around 10 to the power 3. So that tells you the localized scenario. And here you cannot distinguish by isotopic abundance like moly manganese case, because ruthenium nuclei having only 10% I equal to 5/2 scenario. So that quantity is not good enough to figure it out through the isotopic abundances over here. It's a localized or delocalized. So apparently it looks like the localized scenario, the mixed valent one, because of the fact Kc is 10 to the power 3. So tentatively I'm talking about, because here we do not have the advantage of counting the number of metal-based hyperfine lines based on like manganese or molybdenum. So we cannot make that prediction, but we can anticipate that this is a localized situation because of the Kc is much lower, even for the other two systems are 10 to the power 6, 10 to the power 8, something like that. Okay. If you go for oxidation scenario, which is very interesting because it's a competitive scenario. Why I am talking about oxidation is a competitive scenario. Unlike the reduction steps, the reduction certainly has to take place at the metal side because the bridge is already in the super reduced state. But in oxidation, if you start from here, at least first oxidation, if we follow that, I'm showing you here first only, and there it can oxidize to the radical side, right? Bridge can be oxidized to the radical one. And metal can also be oxidized to the +4 state, which is known, very common. Now, what happens over here, if you check the EPR of the oxidized species, it shows the radical EPR. As soon as you get the radical EPR, you are pretty sure that things are happening at the bridging side. So we have considered two possibilities, because if it's the metal over here oxidized to +4, then you should have ruthenium 3 base EPR like this, but that you are not getting. We are getting only radical based EPR. So I'm ruling out that possibility completely. If I rule out that possibility, where we are standing now, we are standing in a situation of a 3-spin situation. That means metal 3, and this gets oxidized as it is getting oxidized. So there is one unpaired electron. Now, in a previous case, what we have talked about in a 3-spin situation, if you look at, 3-spin situation where it's a mononuclear compound. Both the cases it is mononuclear. That means metal is in between the two ligands. Now here we are considering the reverse pattern. Reverse pattern means, the bridge is in between the two metal centers. Okay. But the fact remains same, that it's a 3-electron setup. Now 3-electron setup, you have two possibilities. One possibility is 1,3 coupling, and if 1,3 coupling, God's grace, we have come back again. Anyway, this is the last slide. Yeah. So what I'm saying, that if you have just a second, is everything on? Yeah. Yes. Yes. Now 3-spin system, we can think about 1,3 coupling. That means these two can get coupled, and then unpaired electron would remain at the center point, that is in the bridge, and that could explain the free radical signal. But if you consider the alternative one, that means that these two are coupled, 1,2 coupled, metal ligand coupled, then you have unpaired electron on the other metal, then your EPR should have been this. That means here, what is happening, the magnetic coupling, and as I said many times, EPR and magnetism, they are moving parallelly. Now it's a complicated 3-spin situation, and here, that EPR would tell you that out of this, what coupling is operational, 1,2 or 1,3. Okay. Now you could argue, now in the copper case, it was rather simple. By looking at the orbitals, we could talk about. Now I said already, through orbital, one could talk about by tetragonally elongated and compressed in one case and elongated in other case. But here it is perfectly octahedral setup. We look at the octahedral setup, perfect octahedral setup. That means when I'm talking about the fact, based on the EPR, that this coupling is preferred rather than the otherwise expected, this coupling. This coupling is not preferred. So what is happening, if you look at the crystal structure of this molecule, you will be seeing there is a huge twisting of these structural forms. Because of this, pyrazonyl arms is getting completely twisted. So this is like this. So as a result, magnetically, orbitals of the two metals, they are coming rather closer compared to the metal and the ligands. Okay. And that prefers this particular metal-metal coupling over here. So you need to take the help of structure a lot to follow this particular unusual phenomena. In the previous two cases, it was rather simple because of the tetracoordination, elongation, compression, we can analyze it. But here it is much more complicated with a dimetallic setup. But one could understand in a very reasonable fashion. So about mixed valency, what I tried to convey, that there are many naturally occurring mixed valence setup is there in our biological and mineral world. I have just mentioned a few. Okay. So it is our responsibility to understand how the electron transfer goes on at the mixed valence setup. And mixed valence could be generated from the isovalent lower or higher congener by higher electron transfer. We know that. Okay. And the second point is that in order to understand the electron transfer over there, EPR provides you a lot of support, but do not consider that EPR is the mother and father over there. No, EPR is one of the techniques. So through EPR, you can get some prima facie impression how it is happening, why it is happening. But that might not be always very conclusive unless and until you bring the other spectroscopic technique and even the structural and electrochemistry into the picture. As far as the mixed band is concerned, we said the electrochemistry would give you the immediate impression by looking at the delta E between the two successive redox processes. And the range I said something greater than 10 to the power 6 of Kc, comproportionation constant. That means it is probably the delocalized setup. If it is much below the 10 to the power 6, the 1, 2, 3, 4, certainly it is a localized situation. That means 2, 3 or 0, 1, something like that. But if it is in between, then there is a lot of controversy. Then you have to bring the absorption spectroscopy into the picture. And once that I deliberately I wanted to avoid because of time constraint. Through absorption, because in between, if it is a 10 to the power 4, more than 10 to the power 4, but below 10 to the power 6, then how do you define it? Localized situation or delocalization? EPR cannot distinguish much. Then you need to bring into your solvent effect in electronic absorption spectroscopy. Absorption is a little bit faster than EPR 10 to the power nanoseconds technique, right? Okay, or you can go for the femtosecond technique using lasers and all sort of things. But EPR would be very helpful to figure it out, localized versus delocalized. If you design the molecule in such a fashion where the metal is having reasonable quantity of isotopic abundances, like moly case 25, which is not a very favorable but not too bad. But on the other hand, if you take manganese, copper, they're almost 100%. Very good kind of vanadium, 100%. And if you take ruthenium, for example, what we have given the last example, 10%, nothing could be visible over there. So there are a lot of constraints, but still one can make a reasonable progress as far as the understanding is concerned. And that is why science rolls on. Tomorrow there will might be a better technique, faster technique by which you can provide much better interpretation of the molecular behavior. I think I must stop here. So this would be your overall syllabus for the NSEM exam. So please go through the slides, go through the videos, and if you have any difficulties in understanding, do not hesitate to send me the email. As I said, the email is lahiri@km.iitb.ac.in. Send it to me. I'll be happy to interact with you. And at the end, you'll be getting your answer book today. Okay. I think afternoon you'll be getting it. So wishing you all the best. Enjoy your Diwali. And again, thank you very much for coming on the Diwali day. All the best. If you have any queries, you can also ask me now. So hello, can I close the session now? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Have a nice time. Thank you. Enjoy your Diwali.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.